Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, use the hashtag Rising Woman Leaders. Follow me on Instagram at Meredith Ram and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to get all the new and inspiring content. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. I'm here today with Rosalie Grace, who is a Tantrika, fertility awareness, and sexual health educator, a full-spectrum doula, and devotee of the Divine Feminine Muse. She teaches empowered contraception, body sovereignty, and womb wellness, and facilitates awakening to the natural bliss and ecstasy of the body through tantric-based embodiment practices for women and men. She believes all wombs are temples and all bodies are a portal to the divine. She loves to spend time in the forest, rivers, and mountains, singing to the beauty of the earth. Thank you for being here, Rosalie.
Thank you so much for having me, Meredith.
I was so lucky to get to go to your Tantra class last weekend. I had such a great time. It was... there's a lot out there in the world around like what is Tantra, and there's everything from, the sexual side to it, but also just it being a way of life, and a way of life that embraces all and our humanness, and that, yes, we are sexual beings, and also there are all these other facets of the spirituality and practice to embracing all of life. And I wonder if you want to just start with that, just speaking to what the practice of Tantra means to you, and how that has come to your life.
Yeah, I would love to. I've actually been thinking about that a lot recently. And I love what you said about how it's really something that is deeply a part of your life and your everyday life. And that's definitely what it is for me. I feel that Tantra has been so woven through my being and my very existence since my conception. And it was a really big part of my parents' lives as well. And so in a way, it's like been this code that's been living inside of me, and then it just got awakened. And at the same time, I feel like it is so accessible to everyone. And really, to me, it is the ability to stay awake and to stay present with life at its most simple core. It is energy, it is union with ourselves and with everything around us. And for me, Tantra really illustrates this truth that we don't have to change ourselves to be spiritual. We don't have to make anything up. We don't have to be someone that we're not. It's exactly in our present experience right now that we discover the love and the bliss that we're longing for, and that we can use any experience, emotion, situation as a portal to that place and to that energy that's contained within that emotion or situation can really be a doorway into our freedom. So for me, it's been so healing in just a constant reminder of who I am, and also how I relate to the world around me.
Yeah, and I remember at the workshop you shared your parents were at a Tantra retreat when you were conceived, and like you said, in your codes, and it sounds like it's something that has more recently been awakened and something you feel drawn to teach and share.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I always thought it was really weird growing up. They would tell me, like, you were conceived at a Tantra retreat. And I was like, ew. There are all these books lying around, like conscious sex and different Osho books. And I was like, this is so weird. It's so funny, look where I am now.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of it now? How has that shifted?
Yeah, it's been huge. It really started for me when I was studying yoga. I was doing a yoga teacher training and I really loved it. And there was always this piece of like, where are the women? And like, what about sexuality? And I just had all these questions that weren't really being answered by the path that I was following. And then we had an Anyasara based yoga teacher who came in and she talked about Tantra. And it was the first time I'd really heard anything about Tantra other than from my parents. And she really talked about this idea of divine union of Shiva and Shakti and about living in the mundane world and how that can be a spiritual path. And, that we don't have to necessarily renounce everything and live in a cave to reach this enlightenment or this love that we're looking for. And something just like clicked. I think that was like the first activation where I was like, oh, I know this really deep inside of me. And this is the missing piece. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. And it just felt it so deeply in my body. And so that was really the beginning of it for me. And that led me to find the teacher that I'm studying with now and just continue on a path of opening in my body and to life. And that's included my sexuality, but it's not limited to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to share a metaphor that actually I share in my book. And I did an Anisara training, and that we talked about that Tantra being, so yes, there's the aspects of the energy and the sexuality. And then there's also the aspects of just embracing all of life, including its challenges and all of the muck and things that come our way. And one of my teachers talked about the lotus flower. And it's like some facets of spirituality thought, oh, we're attaining to be like this lotus and like rise above all the muck and be so beautiful, shining with the sun and blossoming. And then the tantric philosophy is more like, actually that flower would not be able to bloom and blossom and grow so beautiful if it weren't for all the muck underneath the surface that was fueling it and allowing it to become this beautiful blossom.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Yeah, and that makes me think about how, one thing that's been so powerful for me is to really lean into those places where there is muck, where there is strong emotions. And, there's such a conditioning to like, for everything to be good and to be happy and to like not go into those places. And I've really found that when I let myself fully be in that energy, it liberates a part of my power that's in that energy. And when I touch that, it's like there's so much more available. There's so much more aliveness that I can access, and I feel so much more wholeness, like I'm not needing to cut off any part of myself. So that's been really a blessing.
Yeah. And I think that's also when we're most tapped in to source and our knowing and our truth and where we want to put our energy next. It's like those times after we have a really good cry.
Yes.
Like we need to fully surrender to the feeling first.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to ask you about, so a lot of your work is in the connection of the womb and the feminine and fertility and all of these different aspects of the womb. So I would just want to hear a little bit about your story in relationship to your womb, relationship to your own embodiment of being a woman. Well, what has that been like for you, and what first spurred your interest to learn about these things?
Wow, that's a powerful question. So I feel like really the first and most profound initiation of my womb was when I was 7 years old when my mother passed away. She died of cancer. And for me, it was like this, I don't know, I see it as like a karmic just, whew, it really opened up a lot for me. And for a long time, I was in kind of like a fog of grief. And then I started to come out of that and realize that I was really longing and grieving for a woman to really guide me, to guide me in the ways of menstruation and how to be a woman. And I was really seeking for that, and I didn't have that. And I really think it's that seeking that really led me to this path of connecting deeper to my womb, and that grief of learning how to really access those emotions. And it definitely led me into a really hard place because I didn't have many tools, and I was really looking for validation in society. Like, I want to know how to be a woman, so I'm going to look at these magazines and I'm going to watch these movies, and that's how women should be. And that only led me to like feeling completely disconnected and lost, and eventually led me to seeking out the feminine. And it was in college that I really discovered the feminine and spirituality all at once. And it was like this life-giving water on my soul of like, oh yes, the feminine, I've been longing for this. And at the same time, I started having these incredibly painful menstrual cramps, like so debilitating. I'd never been in so much pain. And I also was reading about the menstrual cycle and about the hormonal physiology, and I was completely blown away that I hadn't learned any of this. Like, I didn't know that my cycle mirrored the moon. I didn't know that I ovulated. It was just like lights went on at the same time. I felt the pain of having been so disconnected. And so it's really that awakening that led me to learn all I could. And also just a deep desire to share this with other women, just because I know so many of us don't receive that information, even if we do have mothers. So that led me to a 2-year certification program, just diving into teaching fertility awareness, the physiology of the menstrual cycle, and working with the lunar medicine of the menstrual cycle. And also to studying birth and just this amazing portal that is the womb, that has the capacity to conceive and gestate and birth not only life, but ideas and creations. And so just the role of holding space for the power of the womb has felt like a big piece of my contribution and dharma, and what brings me so much joy. And so there's so many ways that I can do that, which I love. Just, tending to all these sacred places in a woman's life.
Wow, thank you for sharing all of that. As you started to learn more about your womb, what happened with those menstrual cramps?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, at first it felt like they got worse. Like, it was like, oh, you're listening? Now I'm really gonna like scream at you. But I also think that what really shifted was, like we were talking about earlier, when I just allowed myself to go into that place. And it took a while. It wasn't overnight, but it was like the more that I could just let go of my resistance and let myself be in the sensation of the pain, it would change. And I would start to feel this power and this like deep part of myself that I realized I wasn't accessing, that had a strong voice and was uncompromising and just like the truth, like speaking the radical truth, and started to tell me ways that I wasn't in alignment in my life. Maybe whether that was in my relationships or my self-care. And when I started listening to that voice and making changes, I noticed that the cramps started to lessen and be a lot less severe. And the more that I would rest and really take that time to listen, the more I would start to receive really powerful inspirations, and the less my pain would be. And so I really think for me, it's that radical listening and really like bowing down to that oracle that is my womb and saying, yes, I hear you.
Wow. Yeah, it's so true. I find for myself as well, it's like there can be a lot of uncomfortable sensations there, but if I am able to give myself a day of rest when I'm really in that, it's totally manageable. It's like it's totally okay when I'm just sitting on a heating pad with a hot water bottle and like with my eyes closed.
Yes.
Like if I'm trying to be driving my car around town and doing errands and getting lots of things done, it just kind of like gets louder.
Exactly. One way I've heard it is that we're having this downward flow, and that's the way that the energy is moving. And if we're like going around in go mode, it's creating a friction against that energy. Mm. And that friction of trying to act in a way that's not the way our body is naturally flowing can create pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell us about fertility awareness. Tell us about what can we learn about our cycles and contraception and also fertility for those women that are wanting to have children. Tell us all about it.
Great. I'd love to. So I see fertility awareness firstly as a self-care practice. Mm-hmm. Fertility awareness is like this way of being in tune with your body and your cycles and your rhythms. And then within fertility awareness is the fertility awareness method. And the fertility awareness method is a way of tracking your daily fertility signals so that you can either avoid pregnancy or become pregnant if you're choosing to naturally. And also as a really amazing tool of assessing your hormonal health. So it's not that it's only for people that are in relationships. It can also be a really great tool for understanding what's going on hormonally, often before anything would even show up on a lab test. It's like a really radical way of reclaiming the sovereignty of our bodies and our own health of our cycle. And basically the way it works is, as I mentioned, you're charting your fertility signals, which are your waking temperature, your cervical fluid, and also your cervix position. And there's like a lot of misconceptions about the fertility awareness method. Unfortunately, it's been associated with the rhythm method, which is more based on calculating from past cycles. Like, oh, I bled on the 4th, so my next period will be, the 4th of next month. Whereas fertility awareness is really like daily determining of your fertility. And that's what makes it effective. And some studies have shown that it actually is very high effectiveness rating. about 99.6% at the highest, which is really up there with a lot of the other contraceptives, and many of the other contraceptives available just aren't so kind on the body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's something I see a lot of women these days really frustrated with birth control options of like, I don't want hormones. Maybe they don't want an IUD. Maybe they don't really know what to do. And I feel like this is an amazing way to connect with your body and also use effective birth control if you're willing to put the time and energy into learn it.
Yeah. Can you give us a little synopsis of what that looks like in a week? Like, what are you doing each day?
Totally. So waking up, I'm taking my temperature first thing when I wake up. Throughout the day, I'm checking my cervical fluid. I'm noting the consistency. I'm noting the texture. I'm recording it. And then I write it all down on my chart. And it's pretty simple. It's about 5 minutes a day. But it definitely takes some time to learn. I'd say at least 4 to 5 hours of instruction, and then a few months of really practicing, because it's something that you need to really learn your body. You know, it's not just like a formula, and it can be a little confusing at first. So it's really important to have some support and some time to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are some of the signals that you're ovulating?
So the cervical fluid that we have changes because it's influenced by our hormones. And the hormone estrogen plays a key role in ovulation. And it causes our cervical fluid to become more wet and more stretchy and slippery. The classic ovulation cervical fluid is like literally like egg whites. Like you can stretch it between your fingers. Not everyone experiences that. Sometimes they experience like little wet bursts. It feels like they kind of peed themselves a little bit. But really the only way to tell if you've ovulated is if your temperature shifts. But we're using both of those in conjunction together to really make sure that we know when ovulation happens.
Mm-hmm. And the temperature usually goes up, right, after ovulating?
Yes, it's usually the day of ovulation or the day right after.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else that would be helpful for people to know, just if they're curious, starting to learn about this, tuning into their cycle, fertility?
Yeah, I think I'd really recommend finding an educator if you want to learn the method.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really helpful in using it accurately. Also, a great book is Taking Charge of Your Fertility by Toni Weschler, which is a very comprehensive guide into tracking your cycle. Also, I guess one thing I would have to say is that I'm pretty wary of some of the apps out there, because some of them, they're not actually based on your daily observations, but more based on calculations they're making, which just isn't going to be as accurate as calculations that you could make yourself. And so I am really a big advocate of doing it yourself. And if you want to use an app, using the app Kindara, which is really in alignment with the fertility awareness method.
Cool. Maybe we can include those in the show notes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And about how many days can a woman get pregnant in her cycle? I've heard lots of different things.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because that's such a misconception. I feel like we're taught that we're just always fertile, which isn't true. And it really depends on the woman. Everyone's cycle is a little different. Usually the range of a time that a woman's fertile could be anywhere from 3 to 10 days. But the fact is, you can only conceive on one day.
Wow.
So what happens is that you can only conceive when the egg has been released, and the egg only stays available for 12 to 24 hours.
Wow.
However, sperm can live up to 5 days in fertile cervical fluid. And so it's really like the 5-day window around ovulation that we're working with. But it's pretty amazing and blows a lot of people's minds that you can only really conceive in that 12 to 24-hour window, with the exception of if you release 2 eggs, and then it would just be 2 days.
Like what, you would release 2 eggs 2 days apart or at the same time?
You would release them within 24 hours of each other.
And is that common?
I don't know the statistic on exactly how common it is, but that is what creates twins.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
Fraternal twins versus identical twins. Oh, thank you for sharing all of that. It's really, I imagine, like, we've both been in this world for a little while, so I have a sense of what you're sharing about, but I imagine for a lot of women, this is very new and something that's like super interesting. It's not something we really learned about in school, so we have to seek this information out. It's wonderful that you've been educating people. How, if people want to connect with you about this, are you going to be teaching more about this?
Yeah, so I do private sessions, and I also have done a class series, and I'll probably do another one maybe in June or July. That will probably be in the Northern California area. And if people also want to reach out to me, I can even send referrals to the network of other fertility awareness educators that are practicing and offering things in different areas as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, another question I had for you, Rosalie, is around actual practices that people can bring into their life in connecting either a tantric practice or a connecting with the womb. Let's say a woman doesn't have a relationship yet with her womb and she's ready to start one. What would you say are some ways to just start to connect with that body wisdom? And
yeah, beautiful. So one of my favorite practices for connecting with the womb that's really simple is just finding a quiet place to sit down and placing a hand on my womb and just bringing my awareness down into the body and just bringing my awareness into the womb space. And just breathing there and listening. And that in itself has been really powerful. I did that every day at one point for like 5 minutes a day. It was just because my womb actually told me, like, hey, we need to talk more. So that was just a really simple way of like, hey, I'm here. Just making myself available without any kind of judgment or idea of what should happen or experience that I should have. Just staying and listening.
Yes.
And so that's been really powerful. And even 5 minutes a day, I find like actually creating short practices can be really helpful because it makes it easy for us to do every day.
Yes. I'm curious about, so women, like there are so many women that have ovarian cysts and painful periods and all the difficulties related to this area of themselves, their body. One thought I've had is like, wow, deepening in connection with the feminine, the relationship with the feminine being a really wonderful place to start. Connecting with the womb, that's a wonderful place to start. Anything you want to share of just something you've noticed, or even just in our culture, what you notice with all of these ailments coming about? What do you think is going on?
That's a powerful question. And what's really coming to me in this moment is our connection to the earth. And when we see what's happening to the earth, and when we see what's happening to women's bodies, it's there's such a deep connection for me. It's like as women having a female body, it's like we are the earth. We are representing the earth. And I see such a connection between what's happening to the earth and what's happening to our bodies and what we're experiencing in our blood, in our waterways, in our tissues. And it's like, how could we not be connected to her? And in a way that breaks my heart, but it also is like such a pathway of healing and remembering how connected we are to her, and also not pathologizing ourselves, which is something I've been through. Is like with menstrual cramps in different health situations, there can be an aspect of like, oh, why is this going on? If only I was like more spiritual or more connected to my femininity, this wouldn't be happening. Mm-hmm. And there can be a tendency to like blame ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then there was a moment where I saw like, wow, is it realistic for me to expect myself to be like completely unaffected when I see what's happening to the earth? Mm-hmm. And to see like, I am not just this isolated experience, like I am connected to what's happening all around me, and the earth and her healing is my healing, and also other women. I think so many of us are tapping into what's happening collectively. Mm-hmm. And that we can feel that in our wombs, we can feel whether that's in our ancestral line or just the collective feminine consciousness. And so that's why I feel it's so important when we do this healing work that, it is also in devotion to the earth and to all women.
Yeah, there's this web, and so many of us are very sensitive and can feel what's happening, or our bodies subconsciously take things on.
Yeah.
To help us to see and to know that we are all connected in this way.
Exactly.
Yeah. I remember hearing, I think it was a shaman speaking once about in, I think, more tribal times, when someone was sick, they wouldn't look at what's wrong with this person, but they would look at the community and say, what's wrong with the community? Or like, what needs to shift in the community for this one person to be healthy?
Exactly. I love that. Yeah, and I felt that too. Like when I was really in the depths of my menstrual pain, there would be times where I would feel like I was feeling like the collective pain of the feminine through centuries.
Yes.
And I think that in a way that's an honor as much as it is a burden to feel that, because it also means I in some way get to bring that into the light of awareness and into a healing container. Mm-hmm. We all get to do that.
Yeah, I love just this idea of us being this greater collective and being able to feel in, just deepen and to take care of ourselves in a way that is taking care of all. Mm-hmm. So another question I want to ask you, Rosalie, and this is something I often ask my guests, is just around just your personal journey in this last year or so. has there been anything, any place where like your growing edge, your place of just like fears that you may have faced or overcome, or what, even what is a growing edge for you now? Or I'd love to just hear your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Yes, actually, it's been coming up really recently as I'm, in my Tantra teacher training right now, and I just taught my first class, and it's really working through like this part of me saying, what do you have to offer? Just this like feeling of like, you're still growing, you're still learning so much, you still have these sticky places where you haven't figured it all out. And for me, this has been the edge of like showing up even as I'm growing and really realizing that it's not that I'm going to like be perfect and figure it out and be completely healed and then give my gifts from that place. It's really recognizing that like it is my experience. It is like the traumas that I'm still working through in my own way that are informing the way that I can show up and taking me even deeper into an ability to hold space for people, because I know I've been there and I know what that space is. And so, yeah, that's been the edge of like, okay, I'm here in all of me and all that's still growing, and I'm putting out my voice. And even though it feels scary and not like perfected and polished.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I once heard that the best way to learn something is to teach it.
Yep. Yeah, and it's a cycle because, for me, it's like I'll learn and then I'll teach. And then through the teaching, I get like plunged back into the learning. Yeah. And it's like this beautiful cycle that just continues and constantly keeps me in a place of humility and learning and also having more to share.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I've also had a teacher who's much older than me, maybe about 20 years older, say, sometimes we think we will get to this place where we're no longer vulnerable or learning. And we just think, okay, when I get there. And the truth is, we never get there. There's always more. It's like we'll get to where we think, the place we want to be, but there's always more. There's always more to learn. There's always more. And teaching and especially sharing our personal stories and entrepreneurship, and it's vulnerable. It will be vulnerable. And actually our vulnerability is our power if we're willing to really, really open to that.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, and that takes me back to what we were opening with of like the power of being exactly where you are. And that's what I kept having to remind myself is like, yes, the power is in this moment. It's in this vulnerability. It's in me exactly as I am in this moment.
Yeah.
So thanks for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you excited about now in your business or your life, or what's coming up?
So I'm in this teacher training right now, and I'll be teaching monthly classes. Had my first one that you came to. That was really sweet. And I'll be having monthly classes in May and June. And I'll also be doing...
This is in Nevada City?
Yes, yeah, California. In Nevada City area. I'll also be offering private sessions in Tantra and Fertility Awareness. The private sessions in Tantra are like something I'm really excited about. It feels like really my gift to hold space for people in that way, and really fulfilling for me. So I'll be offering that. And then I will collaborating, teaching a weekend immersion in Los Angeles, which is July 28th and 29th. And for me, that was the immersion that really awakened so much in my body. And so I'm really excited to be sharing it. So yeah, if you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get all the dates and information for all of that.
Cool. And what is your website link? We'll include it, but what is for people listening?
Yeah, it's rosalieambergrace.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram at Rosalie Amber Grace.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just feeling an intuitive thought to ask if you would lead us in some kind of just short tantric meditation or something just to help us connect with our body before we close our time together today.
Yeah, of course. About how long were you thinking?
Maybe 5 minutes.
Perfect.
3 to 5, I don't know, whatever you feel.
Great. Mm-hmm. So wherever you are, just finding a comfortable seat, feeling the weight of your sit bones. And just bringing your awareness to your breath and your body. No need to change it, just allowing your breath to be exactly as it is. Just see if you can slip your awareness inside the breath. And bringing a hand to your belly. And just feeling the rise and fall of your breath. And just becoming aware of any sensations in your body right now. Any thoughts, any emotions. And see if you can just allow them to be exactly as they are in this moment. Breathing and giving space to whatever is present for you. Now allowing your awareness to settle even deeper into your pelvis, into your womb space. And inviting the breath down into your womb as if it can massage your womb. And just take a moment here and make yourself available to her. If there's anything she's communicating to you. Now as you breathe, receiving this message, just allowing your pelvis to fill with a warm golden light. And feel this light growing, starting to spread through your belly, rising up into your heart. And just feeling the atmosphere of the heart and this holy connection between the heart and the womb. And just take a moment to acknowledge yourself for being exactly where you are, for being here, for giving yourself this gift today of listening to this podcast. When you're ready, you can come back to the room and just gently open your eyes.
So with that, I'm just going to invite us all to bring our hands to our heart, to tap back into that feeling space of the body, the heart, the womb, the connection. What beautiful insights and wisdoms we can find there. This deep connection with Source. And with so much gratitude, I just want to thank Rosalie for being here with us and sharing her wisdom today, for doing her great work in the world. And I'd like to thank all of you listening, for showing up, taking this moment of time to nourish yourself and to learn and to grow and to receive. So whatever gems you're taking from this episode today, just bring that into your heart. Carry it with you as you go out into the world. Allow it to ripple out to everyone around you. So with lots of love in my heart, I bow. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.